For 20 episodes, we talked about our kids, their teams, their coaches, pathways. Maybe it's finally time we talk about ourselves, the parents. Because a lot of parents in youth soccer are overwhelmed, uninformed, and quietly panicking. And I'm mostly talking about myself here. We spend money, we chase badges, we hear 10 different opinions, and at the end of the day, we're still not sure if we did the right thing for our kids.
We're not asking for much, just some straight answers. Not politics, not the sales pitch. We want to know what exactly matters for our kid, what is noise, and how not to get the whole thing wrong, which of course, we probably will have at some point.
Well, this is why we brought Andrew, because this conversation is really about us parents. It's communication, anxiety, pressure, trust, and what families actually need in a system that leaves so many of us guessing.
Andrew May has coached across some of the biggest development environments in this country. Chivas USA, LA Galaxy, Real Salt Lake, LAFC, and he was also selected for the elite formation coaching license through MLS and the French Football Federation, one of the most respected development pathways for academy coaches in the country.
But what stood out to us is not just his resume, it's his tone. Andrew sounds like the coach every confused soccer parent wished they could sit down with for an hour. Honestly, this is the guy our viewers may demand replace me after this episode, so...
In this episode, we get into what parents misunderstand first, how to judge a club beyond the badge, what to ask before joining a new club, why communication inside youth soccer breaks down so often, and how families can think more clearly about development, pressure, and timing.
So if youth soccer has ever made you feel like you are one bad decision away from messing this whole thing up for your kid, sit back, listen to Andrew's voice, because this one feels like therapy. Andrew, welcome to Chasing the Game. Maybe you can just give our listeners the short version of your path, the environments you coached in, and what you've been exposed to.
Yeah, so I've been one of those people that have been doing this more than half my life now. I've been involved in coaching the various levels. So I've done the grassroots, I've done high school, I've done college, and working in the MLS programs, specifically with a few clubs. I started at Chivas USA, and then I was fortunate to work at the LA Galaxy, and then Real Salt Lake, where I also worked with their second team, Real Monarchs, and then came back and worked at LAFC. So I'm a coach, but I'm more, I feel like a mentor for young players and in trying to give back.
You've pivoted a bit in the last year or so and have decided to have a different focus where you're looking more broadly, I think, with the idea that you think you can impact more clubs, more players around the development and share your experiences. What do you see now that younger Andrew probably did not see yet as it relates to youth soccer in this country and development?
Yeah, first and foremost, young Andrew, I would have loved to be Andrew's mentor and to be able to give a lot of this information now that I have, because obviously then I'm able to then help the players, right? I look back a lot at my stuff and I have self-reflection and then sit there and say, well, I could have been better here. Maybe I didn't use the right approach there, and certainly through experiences I've improved, right? Continuous education is the key. That's what we ask of players. That's what I'll ask of myself. It's the coaching, right? The EFCL course, that the MLS is connected with the French Federation. I went through that. And then that kind of really clicked a lot in my brain and made me think a lot more about it.
We had Pat Okama on early on in the pod, and Pat talked about going through that same class and the impact that it's had on him as a coach, as an academy director. What prohibits us from taking elements of that woven into the licensing program?
Yeah, I would say that the U.S. soccer courses are different in a way, right? This is how you organize a session. In U.S. soccer, I never really learned about change behavior. It was more like, okay, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to then show you what I want, and then you're going to give it a go. Now repeat, right? And the French course wasn't about that. It was about how to use your training session, how to use your activities that really change the behaviors of players, right? So whether that be through the guided discovery, which you really need to understand guided discovery first before you just sit there and be like, well, that's just the coach sitting back and not coaching and letting the players do whatever they want. The game's the best teacher and da-da-da-da-da. Like, no, that has nothing to do with it. It's an actual art about how you're asking the right questions in order to get them to think in order to change the behavior, right? I mean, it is maxed out professionalism. You have to bang out a report, bang out a session, bang out feedback on other coaches, feedback on maybe a principal to start thinking in depth about it. And you have to do all that in time constraint, which I found hard, but it also pushed you, right? It got me out of my comfort zone.
When did you realize, or when did your point of view on development has changed?
The EFCL just made me really think about how I can be more impactful in changing behavior, in the behaviors that I wanted to see, as well, not only in the player, but in myself. And then maybe now how I'm delivering that to a coach. And so that's really, I would say in the last like couple years, Real Salt Lake was great for me in terms of the resources with the dorms, with the school, with the setup. I mean, it was incredible. So, but just the contact hours with the players where we're really able to look at everything and have impact on school. So how they are in school, how do they talk to their teachers? They're getting bad grades. How I'm dealing with that as a coach, right? Or, dealing with stuff in the dorm and how to live alone, away from mom and dad and those types of things. So it really made me, during that period of time, being in that environment gave me this opportunity to really strive with different things and look for different ways and try new things and implement stuff. And, and I think that that's the best work, if I'm honest, is best work we've done.
Incredible. I think from listening to you and just a brief conversation getting ready for this, you care a lot, obviously, about the player, but also about the parents and the families and parent education. Why do you think good, loving, committed parents still get this wrong so often, and the journey can be as challenging as it is?
Now, of course, there's a lot of information to go through, and whether it be social media, all this type of stuff that parents have access to now. So, but sometimes too much information, what are you looking for? So can you discern between the good and the bad? And, that's where all parents are different, but, that's where they're having to decide what is best, right? I don't even know what I'm looking at. I don't know what I'm looking for. Maybe one parent played sports, one parent did not. And now it's that one parent's driving it. And maybe they played a sport, doesn't have to be soccer, but they played something. So they believe that they have some idea about it. And then there's others that have no clue, right? And they need information, who they're getting that information from, right? And I think as we're in this pay to play model, which I have, look, I have no problem with that. But I would say that making sure that you've done your homework with clubs, with different coaches and stuff like that. You have to trust people, which isn't easy, but as long as you're getting the right information and trying to do what's best for your kid. And I think that as a parent, my advice, as always, because I'll get asked a question, and what should we do? Should we go here? Should we go there? Should they sign for commit to a college, but we want to be a pro, et cetera? All these things that yes, because I've been around it, I know, but I'm just guiding the parent and the player so that they make the right choice for them. I will say, do your homework, research it, figure it out. What's the reputation of the club? Do they have a plan for your son or daughter? What does that plan look like? How is it achievable? Is it not? But I will never be somebody that says, you have to do this. We're trying to help each player reach their maximum potential. And that's it.
What trap do you see parents fall into first? I'll give you a very quick example. Since we've started this podcast, I've had acquaintances approach me with questions. They assume because I have a mic and I'm on YouTube that I know anything more than I did 30 episodes ago. But for example, one of the dad who is at a Brooklyn team and not an MLS Next team said that he wants his son to play at an MLS club. So he asked me, who do you think? Who do you know? 2 weeks later, the club has announced that they got some MLS Next path. And all of a sudden, the dad is happy staying at that club. So wait a minute, if you didn't like the club 2 weeks ago, them being on some path for MLS Next doesn't immediately improve the environment for your son.
That's patience, right? You have to have patience, and timing is everything. And yes, albeit, you know what? They might need to make a move for their son, for their daughter at the right time. When is the right time? If it's just, hey, I want status and this is the badge and what plays a role into that. I think as a parent, you should think that your child is the best thing ever and they can achieve anything. And so I think that that's the right mentality to have as a parent, but don't be clouded by your own ego. Let them enjoy it. If the player is showing a lot of interest in improving, so that means the player is going out, working on their own, getting a group of friends together, playing futsal, going and playing some organized thing. I really want a private trainer. That's a positive. The kid is showing interest. We don't even know what the player's level is at, but the fact that they're showing intrinsic motivation to improve, that's the positive right there. So then that tells me, okay, let me take a closer look as a parent at the club that my child is in. Is this the best scenario for my kid? i.e., are they the best player on the team? Are they killing it in every single game? Are they clearly the top in their area and now they need to be challenged and put into a different environment? But you have to do your research. Again, as a parent, you have to look at that stuff. And I will say that's probably the hardest thing to do, whether you know your child is actually getting better or developing, because you're going to have, of course, the rose-colored glasses. Maybe ask the coach. Oof. Get ready for the answer because they don't want to lose the best player. But essentially, you'll know and you'll feel like, yep, you know what? My son or daughter's growing out. They need this new challenge. But of course, again, as egos go, we look for the badge. Just because they have a badge doesn't mean that they're doing X, Y, and Z correct. So just be careful about that. When you're in the pay-to-play model, that you're the customer there. So you have the right to know exactly what it is you're paying for. So I'm paying for the fields. Clearly, I'm paying for this coach. Great. What's his or her background? Do they have the licenses? How long have they been coaching? What's their coaching style? What's their philosophy as a coach? Is it aligned with the club? As a parent, I should be asking these questions.
This makes me think, Andrew, this is brilliant what you're saying. Matt, maybe we should do like a 10 questions before joining a club. Put that on the website. Because I've heard it a couple times come up here, but I know I've never asked a single question. Oh, the only question I asked was, Matt, where are you going? Otherwise, I did not ask any questions.
I think it would be helpful. Andrew, I'm curious. It strikes me, and I've certainly been guilty of this, that in some ways, as these kids get older at U16 or U17, their ceiling or what's realistic starts to become a little bit more clear. But when your kids are starting out and they're U8 and they're U9 or even U12 and U13 and they haven't even gone through their big growth periods yet, it seems like there's a real disconnect between reality, right? And even goal setting. How do you set goals as a parent for a U9 or U10 player if you see all those things in your kid, right? What are your thoughts on that just for families that are just entering the fray?
So 9 and 10-year-old, they're going out, they're playing, they're having fun. So that's first and foremost, I need to check and make sure that they're enjoying it and they're learning. So now I need to challenge the player. Where does the player see themselves? Maybe you're not blessed with speed, or your first touch needs drastic improvement. And the child thinks that I should be able to get to here super fast. And every time that child is discovering that they're struggling and they're not scoring the goals, doing the bicycle kicks, sitting on the bench, not enjoying, they're not gaining confidence, they're not cultivating any self-worth with what they're doing, they're done. So placement and timing is crucial. I would say that it's the duty of the clubs to have those real conversations with the parents and say, hey, this child is doing something remarkable at this age group. We're going to look to challenge them here. Your child is struggling in these little areas, and there's an opportunity for them to gain so much more with this coach who is a better teacher for that learning style, et cetera. And that's what I would do there. Setting goals would be more like game day. Not you said 9 and 10-year-olds. How many players are you going to beat today? Like off the dribble, or that cool move you were doing at practice. I want to see that at least come out. Try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So already I'm taking that anxiety. Hopefully I'm taking that anxiety away. And you know what? If you mess up, that's okay. I just want to see you try it. As you start to get older, and now I'll be like a little bit weird with the words, but like goal setting it's more about growth setting, right? It's more about just letting them know to get better. How do you get better every day? I'm sure, you guys have talked about like IDPs and these individual development plans and stuff like that. And within those are those goal settings, but it's basically just how to improve the things you do really well, maybe how to sharpen the knife a little bit, and then maybe an opportunity to correct some of the weaknesses.
What I find interesting is that, for example, IDP that you brought up, we get a review twice a year on the kids' progress, and it says exactly it has super strength, what needs to improve, what you've done well. But shouldn't that be the responsibility of the team, not a presentation to the kid and the parent, where the team recognizes a potential in a kid's, okay, this is what I'm going to work with you on. But the second it comes to the kid and the parent as a report, that's when the panic starts to set in. You don't know how important that skill they said you need to work on is. You have no idea of how big it is in their decision for the future of the kid. Okay, I need to then push my kid to work on those things, but you're not the one in practice. And if the kid needs to work on it, it's not necessarily that the team has the facilities or giving them that support. In that sense, you start to go into private trainings and really just shooting in the dark.
I think it's right, because right away, so you have your child in school and hey, they're struggling in math. That's right away. I need to get them a tutor, right? Their grades are going down. So I need to get them a tutor. As the parent, you are in this, what I'll say, like in this autonomous support, right? You are knowing that your son or daughter is really into this thing and wants to improve. So check. So now my job is just to support you within that. So what is it that you want? Here's some options for you, because obviously they're young. Maybe they don't have zero clue about private training or anything like that. But let's just say, so as a parent, what do? You talk to other parents, and other parents start talking, and they, this person, there's that person that can kind of help. And I would say that in itself is good. But I think you were saying that shouldn't it be the responsibility of the club to do that stuff and not necessarily to go out and have a private trainer?
Yes.
I would just say that it has to do with what type of environment you're in. Are you training twice a week? So if you're training twice a week and that child is saying, hey, I want more, like, give me more. I want to get more in depth with somebody on a one-on-one basis, then so be it. We're just going to let the club do it. We're going to let the coach do it and see what they come up with. That individual attention isn't going to get there. And then, so if we look at player development, it obviously clearly has to do with the coach. So how good of teacher are they? Is the parent involved? What kind of involvement? Is it good? Is it bad involvement? Is the player autonomously motivated? Are they going out? Are they working on their own? What type of stuff are they adding in? Are they adding in a private training? Are they adding video? Is there a plan? I'm just going to say this out loud. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but if you're looking for private training, that private trainer better give you an IDP. We're going to do this for 3 months. This is what we're working on. As a private trainer, I've already gone out. I've evaluated your games. I can see your super strength. I can see what we're working towards and so forth.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
I think a couple of questions ago, you mentioned anxiety in players, and then just mentioned anxiety in parents. When you are sitting at an IDP meeting, and then as a parent, you're thinking, what does this mean for the future of my kid at this club, especially if they're at the top clubs where you have one place to go and that's typically down. So you're trying to keep your place. How much anxiety do you see? I mean, you've coached truly at the elite levels, U18 at LAFC, you've coached at Real Salt Lake, you've won national championships. How much anxiety do you see in players? And do you think it's a growing problem?
There's a lot of anxiety, and that's part of, I think, as a coach's job, but the club as a whole. How do you teach them to deal with that? Anxiety is not a bad thing. Let's just make that, it's not. In fact, anxiety will then tell the brain, okay, click in. These are these emotions you're having. How do you deal with them? What's required now? Bravery, perfect. Anxiety, bravery equals confidence, perfect. I'll give an example. We're playing in a final, and one of the players, I remember afterwards, I'd asked him what was so good about the final. And they said, you treated it like every other game. So it wasn't, you didn't put added pressure on us that this is a final, and you treated everything the exact same. When we played on Saturday in a friendly and we played in the final, you treated it the exact same. And that helped us in terms of our anxiety, our stress levels. I'm just a piece of it. There's the outside stuff that plays a role, parents, how the parents help and how they deal with it and how they communicate with their son or daughter about that type of stuff. But if we understand that anxiety is there, it's good, and it's good for players to learn how to deal with that. What are the tools that'll help them calm down or be brave?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you said the word safe before, a safe environment. And it's almost two truths can exist at the same time. But let's say a kid is in a club that checks all the boxes about the kid's development, but maybe a more prestigious club then puts in the offer to take the kid. So maybe both environments could be attractive at the same time. But if you do choose to move up, let's say, and obviously we don't live in a vacuum. It's a community. People, oh, congratulations, what a great move. At that point, at a certain age, the word safe starts to disappear, because in the child's mind, almost every move matters. Every team matters. That means that every selection of the team matters, and that starts to pile up. And I was just wondering, as you deal with those transitions, how do you help parents deal with those transitions?
It's a really hard one. I've had players that have gone on and they've played in national team, U15, U16 on this high potential pathway. And then all of a sudden it just no longer exists, and for various reasons. And then all of a sudden it's that parent, that kid, they've lost their identity. I'm a soccer player, and I'm a soccer player who's been with the national team, and I'm a soccer player that's playing with the second team or playing up, or I've always been excelling at what I do. And now I'm not. Who am I? Right? You're not getting away from that. That is there. It's about educating the parents, talking to them that if this happens, it's all about supporting them. It doesn't mean that they're a bad player if they're not getting selected by the national team. It doesn't mean they're a bad player if they're no longer on this, let's just call it homegrown pathway or whatever. If they're not in this trajectory, doesn't mean they're a bad player. Timing is everything. So I'm sure there's been these players that go off to college and they thought, for sure I'm going to be signed. For sure I'm going to go pro. And all of a sudden they don't. And they go to college, and 4 years later, boom, they're in the draft and they're a pro anyways. And I think that's why when I look at pay-to-play clubs, I have most directors that are supposed to be leading these things, right? So going out and helping the coaches, because usually they coach 2 teams, maybe even 3 teams, right? I really feel like it's that director's job to help the coaches communicate with parents that this is what we should be talking about, these types of things. This is what to expect. I mean, we know how teenagers are. You know what you're going to get, right? You know the distractions, the moodiness, these different things and it's just based on now your experience that you can tell the parents, tell the player, it's okay. It's no problem that you didn't get selected. No problem that this didn't happen. Because in reality, your growth isn't done. You're not done as a player. You're not done as a person. You have so much more to give. And don't worry about that. Don't worry about anybody else. Worry about your process. And I think I say that it's a message, and I hope it's easy to understand, but obviously it's still sensitive. People have to trust you. Yeah.
Andrew, we should have said this at the beginning, but you're also a father of 4, right? I think ranging from, was it 22 to 8?
Yeah.
That's right. How has being a parent influenced how you coach, and then more so than coach from a tactical perspective or a technical perspective, but communicate and understand players?
Wow. Well, first of all, I think just because I'm maybe if I'm good at what I do, soccer coach wise, doesn't make me immune to why aren't all my kids pros, or right? Like clearly it doesn't work like that. And what I've learned is just be there for them. And this is part of it. Is did I have a vision of all my kids playing at elite levels? Of course. But ultimately I learned, what do they gravitate towards? That one's a really good artist. That one likes to play soccer, maybe isn't at this high trajectory, but you know what? She does great and she loves it and she wants to play. So how can I support her in that? As well as I would say how to communicate through the different stages, right? So 10, 12, 14, 16, etc. And just having a better idea maybe about what they're feeling and what they're going through and just how to be, again, just to be there for them. I think as typical as like when we're on the car ride home, I don't say anything. I just don't. Maybe I don't need to tell this kid that it wasn't the best day for them. Maybe they know. Maybe it's now not the right time. Right? Maybe they're not going to be receptive to what I'm doing. So my kids have taught me that, finding the right times to talk to them so that it's more impactful. Right.
We've worked with coaches who, many of them are young coaches who don't have kids. And in some cases, more cases than not, I've been incredibly impressed with how they work with and communicate with kids when they don't have them. I know my 27 or 28-year-old self without kids would have had no clue.
I'm great with other people's kids too.
By the way, I still can't figure out how to communicate very well with my own. But I do think, and then I've seen other cases where I think it's a real struggle for young coaches to communicate not only with kids, but with parents. How do you work with younger coaches to help them understand that better? Because it does feel like that's a huge breakdown in general, right? If we could just solve some of the communications gaps, I think that the kids would be so much better off. I think there'd be less parent pressure, right, and engagement if there was some of the transparency. I just haven't seen all of that.
Well, and that's the crux of it. If you're looking for a club, you're looking for a club that the directors are involved. The directors are not coaching teams. They're not coaching two teams and so forth. They're there on the ground to talk with parents and communicate with parents because obviously, the director's older and has more experience. You can't let your 22-year-old just graduated college and now wants to get into coaching and just leave them there and hey, good luck. When you're young and you want to coach, you have a good heart. Automatically, you're out there, you're playing with the kids, you're doing you're showing them how to play soccer in a way like that's not easy at all, right? It's like herding cats, as they always say, right? So, but at the same time, the responsibility of the club is like a school. So that principal, the head of school, is there to answer questions for parents that, like you said, the transparency. This is our learning process. This is our curriculum. This is at this age, this is what we are going to do. And this is how we're going to try to achieve block curriculum, spiral curriculum, whatever. Like, be transparent about it, that this is what we're going to do. And oh, by the way, it's not always going to be perfect. We're dealing with kids and so forth. We need young coaches. If they're showing an ambition, they're showing an interest in doing it. It's just like a player, giving them the right pathway and tools.
So, I mean, coming to that, let's say you're a parent, you don't have soccer background or sports background, and you put your kid in a club that you think is impressive. They have the badge. People tell you it's good. The club is winning. Let's say the kid is mid-tier kid. But what are the red flags that a parent can see from the side saying, you know what, I think my kid can do better? Are there any tells?
Well, there you go. That's, as a parent, you're already saying it. I think my kid can. I want my kid to do more. I want my kid to run after that ball and score a goal. And I tell you these things, it's like easy in a way, but at the same time, there has to be somebody to communicate that with parents. And what I mean by that, you have to do it in a very tactful way. I mean, I've dealt with, I would say, high level parents or parents that are pushy, and they can see that their son is on a high trajectory. Perfect. But then they get really pissed off why aren't they playing up? Why aren't they here? Why aren't they there? I'm open. You want to have a conversation? Let's talk. I don't hide anything. And sometimes there's things that parents can't see that are happening behind closed doors. Just makes things more transparent. I'm going to be open to you. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation about it. Now, you might not like what I say, but we can talk about it and we're going to get through it. Why? Because my job is here to help your son. That's my job. If you don't think that I'm doing that, then for sure, there's tons of other places you can go to, but that's never our intent.
What percentage, if you had to put a percentage on it, are the parents generally right around their intuition or the questions, or they're pushing the club and the coach?
Wow.
This is a math special. This is a math special.
Yeah, this is a math special. Okay, differentiation between, I just think that the parents in general, if this is their first child and they're going through it, they don't know anything. Like you said, maybe they have zero soccer background and they're just there and they're like, whoa, let's just say if the club doesn't bring it up, but let's say the parent asks a question, which it should be open, and there's enough people, the coach, maybe an assistant coach that's around that watches a team or whatever, maybe the director is saying, yes, we agree with you, or no, we don't agree with you. Because ultimately it is that expectation that a parent has and maybe what the club has of the player. If they're too far apart, that's a disaster. That's a disaster lined up. You have to bring those together. And that only happens with communication. Sorry, coaches, like you're going to have to be able to deal with parents at some point and don't shy away from it. Think about what you're going to say. But ultimately, if you have a plan in place and you have something thought out, then it's easier. Novice coaches, coaches that are just starting out, they don't have that. And that's where I think we were talking about there has to be something from the leadership of a club in order to do that and help them.
It's so, I mean, it is so nuanced, right? Like what we're trying to solve for here isn't easy, but I think everybody wishes it were easy. And there's emotions, like there is raw emotions that come into play when it's your kid. And the window, whatever that window is for, whatever the goal is, isn't open forever, right? And I think that's part of the pressure. I think there's too many data points which have made it much more confusing in a lot of ways.
I agree. And there's something popped in my head just about comfort. Life is not comfortable. And so as a parent, you want comfort for your kid. You're like, I got to protect him from here. I have to protect him from there. I have to protect him from the world. And the reality is it's kind of setting him up for failure, right? You don't want to parent comfort. You want to make sure that you're parenting to give them confidence. The anxiety and the different emotions and maybe even the setbacks, those are all part of it. That's where I think as a young parent, you need to understand that there's going to be setbacks, that there's going to be they're going to come home crying, whether they played a bad game, maybe they were told they played a bad game or whatever. They may think I got cut from the team. Again, that doesn't make them a bad kid. That doesn't make them a bad player, first and foremost. So as a parent, there's your support right there. Parent with confidence rather than just comfort and so forth. It's hard, I know, but look, as a parent myself, I went, I go through those things, the crying on the phone at night, and this friend did this, or this college never got back to me, and that was my go-to one, or what. Like, yeah, that happens. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I cry on the phone to my son all the time. It's almost an unfair situation for many parents and maybe many coaches, because many parents pay over $20,000 a year. I mean, giant amounts of money. So there's a little lack of trust between the parent and the clubs. And I'll explain what I mean. If let's say you have a kid that is bigger than everybody, he's killing everyone. So the parent at that point, they go to the club and they get their IDP or their progress. The club doesn't want to lose the kid because the kid is winning all the games. Everything looks great. The club's going to sell the parent saying, your kid is definitely on a path to a AAA life. Even though maybe the coach deep inside knows that this is a short-term window for that kid, because by the age of 14, they're gone. The reverse would be the kid who's underdeveloped, but actually is missing a lot of skills. And many times those clubs will say to the parents, don't worry, just wait a little bit. Puberty will hit, the kid will catch up. Even though many times the clubs would know that the kid really doesn't have what it takes, but they don't want to lose the kid as a customer. So that's when I think a lot of the parents have this difficulty understanding sometimes what clubs are saying, trusting what clubs are saying, and also how do the coaches deal with situations like that?
I think first and foremost, again, if I'm looking at a club, even in pay to play, there's a leadership, and that leadership is in charge of overseeing these teams, multiple coaches, and you're going to try to do what's best for each player. I know it sounds easy, and I know it's not the case, but so if a coach is holding a player back and lying to a player, let's just say, so like you said, so that they don't lose them, how is that fair to the player? When you as a coach are trying to have the player reach their maximum potential, and if they've already hit here and they need to then move on in order to reach that, because maybe there's there's a better place for them to be, then you as a club, you as a coach have to accept that. That's where we are in the ecosystem. So for example, down in Orange County in California, where you deal with the LA Galaxy and you deal with LAFC, by U14, U15, some of their teams have been dismantled and they're all playing at Galaxy or they're all playing at LAFC, essentially, right? But that club still exists and those teams still exist because the next one is up. And then all of a sudden, I think it was U19 that they ended up winning MLS Next Championship. I can tell you, a lot of their players had already been picked off by MLS clubs. And it's the relationship that the leadership has with all these other non-MLS clubs, let's just say, or that let's be in agreement that we're trying to better this thing and we're not trying to hold anybody back. So, but it's also a trust. Let us know. Is the kid ready? Do you think geographically, are they ready to move? Are they ready to make the drive? And giving them the heads up, we'd like to probably take this player. It gives them the idea. Lets them get ahead of it that they're going to then probably move a few pieces here and there or look for another one out there or take another one at a tryout or placement. So that's where the leadership, I think, is really crucial. It's getting better, I would say, to a certain degree. But if you don't have a pulse on your coaches and your coaches are just going rogue and they're trying to protect their interests of their own team, that's the problem. You're not on an island. You're working for this company. We're all trying to go in the same place. Oh, and by the way, I know you've lost your best player. Don't worry. You've essentially done your job. You've done good work.
Yeah. On paper, it sounds great. But I think in reality, maybe that's why a lot of parents go to third parties or supplementary stuff to get further feedback on really where someone else on the outside thinks their kid stands, because they don't have exactly what you just described, that they feel that transparency exists between them and that club.
But that's okay. I like that. I don't have a problem with that. If a parent goes to somebody that they trust, somebody that they've built a relationship with and that they trust within the ecosystem, they're doing their homework. It's like when you're going to get a second opinion of the doctor, you're doing your homework.
You've coached truly at the elite level. We talk often on this podcast around how we throw the word elite around all the time for players. Yeah. What does elite, in your definition of an elite player, really look like?
An elite player is somebody that shows a lot of high potential indicators. So in terms of it, obviously, we know the technical piece. Do they have a good first touch under pressure? So when you're going and you're evaluating them or scouting them, and then, of course, bringing them into your environment, and they're still doing those things and they're meeting every single challenge. So on the technical side of things, but I'll be blunt. Do they have a genetic, physical component to them that's there? It doesn't have to be full blown, but there's something there. There's a special weapon that they have. Sometimes when you're pigeon-toed, you have like this wrap of the ball that you can cross or you can hit the free kicks or whatever, right? This player has this engine that just is up and down the field. There's always something there in terms of that. That doesn't mean that they're the tallest, that they're the strongest, no, but there's some type of, you can tell, like genetic, physical component there. And then their brains, can you tell if they're thinking ahead? Can you tell that if they're anticipating and they're always like on the front foot and they're not surprised by certain things that are happening? And then lastly, I would say, how is their social life? Like, what are they surrounded by? I was fortunate to spend time in Monaco where they had to look for, of course, talented players, and they had talented players. And it was like, what made that difference? What made that small difference between you selecting this player and not that player? Or this player or that player? It came down to who's surrounding them. Who's their entourage? Do they have parent support? Who are their friends? Who are they hanging out with? What are they doing? Because that told them, is this person going to, and with all the stresses and anxiety and pressures and et cetera, do they have enough support around them in order to fully make it? If you don't have that support, it's very, very hard. That gives you an idea, not necessarily being the overdeveloped player at U14 that's banging in 25 goals and no one can stop you because it's over the top, right? Like that in itself is for sure. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that kid, but we know, and we've seen it enough to where the clubs that player is in is just taking advantage of that. And they're not going through a whole curriculum type of thing. That team is working on an island and just feeding off that success of that one team in order to then get the next crop of players to come. And now we've won X, Y, and Z.
Are you suggesting if you take one of the MLS professional academies at a U18 team, so you've got a roster of 21 or 22 kids, are all those kids elite by definition? Are half of those kids elite by definition of what you just described? Because we're talking about the top academies, right? Professional academies. And at that point, they're either on the brink of becoming a pro or going to play at a top level college, one would assume.
So this context dependent because one, if you're in Southern California and there's 2 MLS teams, I can tell you there's some really good players there that don't play in an MLS team.
Yeah.
Right? There's just not enough in terms of numbers wise. There also are players that maybe at U16 should be out of the MLS team. And maybe there should be a player in another club that should be able to come into the MLS team. Because again, so no, it's not every single kid in an MLS team is the elite and best of the best. That means that MLS club values, I guess, the player in that way.
Yeah. No, it's a great, another nuance, but I think it's a really good one.
So I'm just going to reverse it. Let's say you have a U13, U14 kid, one in New York and one in Monaco. And it's the same exact kid.
Was that Monaco with the
I love that.
I don't know.
Great accent.
He always does this. Like every once in a while, he tries to drop something
Monaco.
in. So we all think that he's smarter as it relates to
I think we established
football.
that if there's a little bit of accent, that raises your soccer IQ. So
100%.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Coaching by accent. Yeah.
Man, jealousy, man. That's not going to get you anywhere, man.
Monaco, where you were playing football.
We play football in Monaco.
There you go.
But back to the question that, and I know, Grok, what was question 38? Back to that question. So you have an identical kid in both environments, same genetics. Would the kid in the European environment have a better chance of becoming an elite player versus the kid in the United States as they develop?
At the current moment, yes. The player in Europe would have a higher chance. They'd be ahead. And what I mean by they'd be ahead and, we're playing catch up. They go and they play competitive games. We want to play Manchester United this week. Oh, we want to play Bayern the other week. If a club in Europe is playing these battles in every single weekend, right? And that doesn't exist in the US yet. I know we're trying to get there, but that players in Europe is already ahead because they've been doing it since 5 years old, already been programmed in that way, as well as obviously culturally, right? Plays a role. They're watching the games more. They have a little bit more sense about them. And in that way, that player is ahead. Our players that go over there at a young age, but they do find it very difficult. So our strive, I think, in this country is try to close that gap with different competitions.
I've heard you say the academy's job is to help develop young people, not just produce players, which is obviously the most important thing in all of this, which we somehow tend to lose sight of, myself included. If that stayed at the center, what should change as it relates to development in this country?
Well, it would make you look at every decision that you're making, right? So obviously it's a business and there has to be business decisions made, right? Virtually for your assets. Are we signing this player? Are we not signing this player? Or are we putting more resources into this or are we not? And businesses are able to operate however they want. You as a parent, every time you're making a choice or you're trying to help your child through life, you have this emotional attachment to it, right? You're making these emotional decisions. And if clubs worked in that same way, then they'd be making better choices for the players. I myself, and I always joke, you threw out the number of kids I have. The reality is I probably have 2,000, right? Kids in my period of time, just because I've been fortunate to work with so many different players, and I treat them like that, like they're my own. I'm emotionally attached to that. I know what they're going through. I can feel what they're going through, and it's authentic, which I think is also important because they know that I care more about them than their football, and I think that's the key. And if clubs worked like that. And I know that's muddy water because you're dealing with business, but if clubs took that approach more, then we'd be, I think we'd be more successful, more transparency, like we all want. Yeah.
Andrew, my last question is, Of course, I know the answer.
Of course.
Oh, that's good. Ask
Is it-
questions you know the
yeah,
answer to.
Yeah. No,
Is it the right answer?
Yeah, it's exactly. I know the wrong answer. As the kid climbs in the soccer ladder, is it important that the parent knows the sport?
No, not necessarily. Because again, parent involvement can be good and it can be bad, right? And it's how that parent is interacting with their child. So we have to, all of a sudden, if a parent thinks that they know everything and they're like, oh, well, you should have crossed here, or you should have shot there, or why'd you pass it over there? You should have done it yourself. Okay, so all of a sudden now they're more knowledgeable than the coach. They're more knowledgeable than the player. It's a disaster. So I don't necessarily think they need to know. I think it's a connection between a parent and child, and what a great opportunity for the child to talk about and educate their parent in the sport. Whereas usually it's reverse. That'll help the child master a few things. I've dealt with, and I do some consulting with parents and players and things like that. And I'll ask the parent, did you ask Johnny what coach did today and what it was all about? Because I saw some things happening. It looked like a back four and they were trying to build it. What was that all about? And you'll see that either, and this is actually good feedback, because it's either the kid will have clarity about what they were actually working on and then can tell the parent what they were doing and what they were working on, or the kid can't. Red flag. Because then that means maybe the coach didn't do a great job in terms of that. So that's what I mean by a parent-child communicating. But again, the child has to open that conversation. You have to know when it's ready to, as a parent, you have to have that feeling about like asking, I was curious. I saw that. What was that about? I don't even know. Letting them know that you're open to learning. Oh, what another great example in life. Yeah. Open to learning.
So I should stop pretending like I know anything about soccer. All right.
Well, with the accent, we know that you do.
Man, maybe I should adopt a Wisconsin accent or whatever.
Well, can I ask you this question? So what does your drive home look like? Your child plays and then what?
I want to tell you, so first of all, this is on a personal matter. This is Matt and I have opened up many times on this pod. I've almost stopped going to practices, not because of the drive home, but almost in a way, it just, there's a distance, and I just got to let my son do his thing, because obviously even with the podcast itself, it's been weird that now all of a sudden I have a soccer podcast, and it's just a little bit too much for him to deal with. On games I learned, and I've learned it here. I keep my mouth shut, and we play music, and we talk about lunch and what movie we're going to see. We're pretty much done with, unless there's been like a spectacular moment where I want to reaffirm, wow, that was amazing. I work really hard to not talk about it, and I immediately call Matt, and then I talk to Matt.
And you tell him about all the bad things that you saw.
God damn, I just should have seen me that nothing is lazy.
Yeah.
I wish I was there. I'm still working on it, but I think part of it is just like we both just love the game and love to talk about it. But the timing of those conversations or how they're structured matters a lot too. So I think that's probably been my biggest takeaway, which, by the way, I'm like still have clearly not perfected, but I hope to get there.
I know what I do that annoys him very much, and that I actually do know, and that I can't check myself doing, is I know, let's say he's in the car with my wife, and I would call, but I can almost hear myself say it only after I do it, and I'm on speakerphone, of course, but I don't think about it at that moment, and he's in the back, and I always say, oh, how was practice? Mm-hmm. But then I hear myself saying it, him sitting in the car and me on the speaker, like, what is he even going to say? Oh, it was lousy. And then I'm going to start developing a conversation, start screaming at Hebrew while he's in the car.
Yeah.
And but I can't help myself.
But it's the same thing as asking how was school, as opposed to what was the best part of school.
That's right. And how's school? Lousy question. How school is every time I do it. Yeah. It's a failure.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the art, I think, is like how you're framing the question. So typically, and two examples. So one is a parent, you ask, how was your game? Maybe you missed it. How was your game? How was it? And the kid will respond, oh, yeah, we won 5-1 or we lost 2-1, whatever the case may be. Whoa. I don't care. I don't care about the result. Exactly. I don't care about the result. How did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Yeah. Did you not? What position did you play? Those types of things are more important. And I think as a parent, learning that little bit of skill about, okay, let me ask a question that they can't really dodge with a typical, good.
Oh, so you know my
You know-
son.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
yeah.
I didn't realize you guys met before. Oh,
I'll let you know that the majority of the teenagers are all the same.
what time is it? Okay.
Fine.
Yeah.
Sure.
How's the
I
weather?
will say,
Okay.
I will say that with my kids, it's very typical the same. They go, "We know what you're doing, Dad.
Yeah.
We know what you're doing. Why are you even asking it like that? Like that." Now they know me. That is because I've been around them for a while, so they know me. They're like, "Why are you asking that? I know what you're doing."
But you're
Stop
dying
that."
to know, right? But you're dying for
Yeah.
that information.
Yeah.
I actually.
But then as a parent, I have to accept the fact that, okay, they don't want to talk about it right now. And that's okay. Drop it. That's okay. That's all right. And then find another moment to talk about it. And that's okay. And that doesn't mean your kid doesn't like you or your kid doesn't want to share things with you. That doesn't mean that either. It's again, if you're trying to get in the head, you were a teenager. Exactly. Well, maybe it was a long time ago, but essentially, like, you know,
He's
how
talking to you, Laurent. He's talking to you.
but you know how it is as a teenager. Yeah, exactly. And how it is to talk with your parents.
No, but it's true. A big thing just happened. They had a game. They had a practice. You love soccer. They love soccer. Of course, you're going to want to talk about it. Anything else looks minuscule. What am I going to talk about? The Fed lowering the interest rate, or my day at work, which of course he doesn't care about. I mean, there's really nothing left to talk about.
Yeah.
I've become so self-conscious that he loves, unfortunately for him, he loves Tottenham in the Premier League. I'm worried to even ask him about, did you watch the highlights for the game? Because then I'm thinking he's going to relate it to me thinking that he's not watching soccer. Like it's become,
You're in your own head.
I'm up. No,
you are. Okay, maybe you're overthinking this. Maybe you're overthinking. I would say right. There's no parenting guide. You know how they say there's no parenting guide. There's also no coaching guide, right? In the same way, I always see that like coaches come off, the field, and what's typically asked, "Hey, how was training?" And the coach would be like, "Good, yeah, great." How was it good? How was it great? Yeah. What do you mean? And so it's the same thing. And that when I do that with coaches, because I'm trying to get them to improve their delivery and really think about and really change the players' behaviors. So like I told you about guided discovery in a way, you have to know how to ask the questions the right way. And I think as somebody that's a parent, you have to ask your son or daughter in the right way. By the way, you might not even have to ask anything. You can start with the statement. That was cool. Yeah. Wow, that was awesome. You get in the car and you're like, wow, that was awesome. That was unbelievable. Oh man, that penalty save you made. Oh wow, you really read that. Yeah. You were on top of it. Something like that. I think it's
not like you were crap today. Like,
right.
Andrew, as we wrap, I think your perspective in working with MLS clubs and now some of the work you're doing with MLS Next clubs and otherwise, how can people find you? If they're looking to have a conversation or consulting opportunities, I think just what you can possibly bring either to families or to clubs, I'm sure is in demand.
I mostly work through email and Instagram as well, right? Through DMs, especially academyfc3@gmail.com. And then it's the same for the Instagram.
It was amazing. Grok, remind me tomorrow to contact Andrew after practice about how well I did.
I feel like more like I'm talking you off the edge.
I know. Me too.
By the way, again, that's the whole. I think that's the point. It's to have that parent director, parent coach conversations all the time.
Also, I just want to give a special a shout out to Andrew Nystrom for the introduction to you.
You don't know how much we appreciate it and how I know what reaction is going to be coming off of this. So
I appreciate I appreciate the time. Yeah.
Okay, Matt. How do you say wow in a really smooth and relaxing voice? Because I'm feeling a little bit better about myself right now. There was a lot of smart things in this conversation, mostly from Andrew, some from you, and we're not going to talk about the rest. But what stayed with me most is that he feels like a calm voice parents have been looking for. Someone credible, steady, and honest enough to help make sense of this all.
And he gave us a few lines in this episode that every parent should probably write down. One was simple: don't be clouded in your own ego. Another was even more important: doesn't mean that they're doing X, Y, and Z correct.
This is the hook for the whole episode, right? Parents, we need help because too many of us are looking at logos, status, and noise, when what we should be looking and what we should be asking for is, what is the right environment for my kid?
Wait, speaking of logos, chasing the game, merch. Available. DM Laurent. He also says something that cuts right to the heart of pay-to-play world. You are the customer there, so you have the right to know exactly what you are paying for. That is a huge line. Ask the questions. What is the coach's background? What is the philosophy? What is the plan? How do we measure it? And is there really a plan at all?
Yeah, and my favorite idea from the whole interview was this one. Don't just parent for comfort, parent for confidence. This is such a different way to think about it, not protecting your kid from every hard moment, but really helping them grow through hard moments. There's a difference here. Now, who is going to parent me for some confidence? Oh, that was a
I'm not
bad
signing
joke.
up for that.
I know it was a bad joke.
I'm not signing up for that. Yeah. Andrew also brought real calm to the anxiety piece. He said anxiety is not automatically bad. The key is learning how to deal with it, and that applies to players. But honestly, it applies to parents too, because half of youth soccer is learning how not to let fear make your decisions for you. Andrew, thank you very much for joining us. We very much appreciate your time.
Yeah, and if you're a soccer parent who has ever felt lost in the system, send this episode to another parent who needs it, because this one is not about hype, it's about clarity.
Subscribe to the show.
And in a
Please.
smooth voice, yes. We will see you next time in Chasing the Game, Youth Soccer in America. Bye, Matt.
Bye, Laurent.